How are you lovely people doing today? My name is John. Welcome to the first ever edition of the Black Ops 3 Zombie Storyline Q&A. In this series, I take your questions about the zombie storyline and answer them. Whether it's a big, a small, or a simple question, I'm more than happy to take it. So either leave it down below or tweet me at JohnnyJ25. And maybe while you're there, drop me a follow. That would always be much appreciated. Without further ado, let's begin. So we're going to kick things off with a question from Cam and Lukas Marcelis, who asks, who is Dr. Monty? So I'm gonna first start off by saying that we don't really know who Dr. Monty is. We haven't been given much information about him, other than the fact that his name is on the GobbleGum machine and you can access his factory within the Black Ops 3 menus. Hopefully we'll begin to learn more about him, but at the moment there's only a couple prevailing theories. The first idea behind Dr. Monty, and this is the more boring theory, is that he's not really anyone. He was just a name that they assigned to these things within Black Ops 3. The GobbleGum machine, they just slapped a name on. They just picked Dr. Monty. Like, it could have been any name. It didn't really matter. It's not very specific. That's one theory, and that's fairly plausible. However, it's quite boring. If you do a little digging, though, you can start to maybe get an idea of who Dr. Monty was and what he was responsible for. So, I don't believe Dr. Monty was a doctor like a medical doctor. Rather, somebody with a PhD, in the same sense as Dr. Richtofen or Dr. Schuster or Dr. Groff. These are people who are very knowledgeable in the field of science, have earned their PhD in some, facet of science. We don't know exactly what. And then he went on to work with the Element 115 and created many great things like the members of Group 9 through 5 of the Ascension Group. Now, I'm not saying that Dr. Monty was a member of any of these groups. We have no idea. What I'm saying is he could have been somebody in that same vein. Now, what did Dr. Monty create? Of course, he created the GobbleGum machine, but I also think he is responsible for the perk machines. If you look in the Dr. Monty's factory along the background, you'll see several perk bottles. In fact, hundreds of them running across conveyor belts. Quick Revive, Double Tap, Juggernog, Speed Cola, Mule Kick. They're all there moving across the conveyor belt. And this is in Dr. Monty's factory. And this kind of gives us the idea that maybe Dr. Monty was responsible for the creation of the perks and the perk machines. This is a bit radical than anything we've ever considered in the zombie storyline. We always assume that the perks were created by Group 935, the Ascension Group, the Americans, and we'd basically base it on which map that we were first seen in. So we assumed that the original 4 perks were created by Group 935 because they were originally seen in Group 935 facilities. But then it started to get confusing because we would see them in facilities from the Ascension Group, and we would see them in facilities made by the Americans. And it was like, alright, why are these perk machines here if they belong to specifically different groups of people? And maybe it's because Dr. Monty created the perks, and maybe Dr. Monty is in a universe or is some entity separate from everything else. He maybe exists in a world that we have yet to really conceive or explore. And maybe because he is detached from all these different universes physically, he is able to inject bits of his perk machines and his devices into the maps. This would explain why perks can be found in multiple maps that don't really make sense, and why the GobbleGum machine would be in both the Giant and Shadows of Evil, because it doesn't really make sense for the GobbleGum machine to be within the Giant, and the only explanation would be is some sort of outside force or entity put it there, and maybe it was Dr. Monty. Dr. Monty could have created all these perks and all these GobbleGum machines, and it kind of makes sense because the perks and the abilities from the GobbleGum machines all sort of fall into line together, and we see them in his factory. So he probably did create them and then injected them into the maps. Moving on, we have a question from Yeri Bolt 1 who asks, I understand that there are different universes, but my question is, does Shadows of Evil follow up from the Maxis side of Buried or the Richtofen side? By the way, I love your vids, especially your Q&As. Thank you. So, Shadows of Evil does not follow from either universe. Of course, Dr. Maxis is in control of the Ether, or at least is an ethereal being during Shadows of Evil because we can hear him speak through the rift. However, he is not the same Dr. Maxis who takes control of the world at the end of the Buried Easter egg. This is a different Dr. Maxis from a different universe. Buried is kind of the end of one of the story arcs. the story arc from World War II up until Buried, in which Dr. Maxis and Dr. Richthofen compete for complete control, is over. There might be some maps to follow, like I can't definitively say we'll never see a map from that story arc again, but if we consider how the story has progressed, it kind of makes sense that we wouldn't see much from that arc, because it seems to be wrapped up. It ends with either one of them taking control and then the world kind of being doomed. And that's just kind of how it ends. Shadows of Evil, though, is its own separate universe in its own pocket of time and space. And sure, we are able to hear Dr. Maxis, but that's just him speaking through an interdimensional rift. So it's neither. It's just its own separate universe. And Buried, its story is over. So we're going to wrap up today's episode with a question from @BrandonIsBiller, who asks, because the old crew is still on Moon, do you think the Origins crew will go from the Giant or to the Moon? So one of the big things within the map The Giant is this idea of awakening the test subjects, and we have some pretty conflicting ideas. We have Dr. Maxis, who does not want the test subjects awakened, and we have our original crew minus Richthofen, who thinks they're there to awaken the test subjects.
The test subjects can never be allowed to awaken. The havoc that could be wreaked upon the future by such simple-minded individuals could be catastrophic. Heed my warning.
Having failed to secure the intel, test subject's location is currently unknown. Damn it, Richthofen! Why do you always have to screw everything up?
So we have these two conflicting ideas. Dr. Maxis, of course, assumes Richthofen won't awaken the test subjects, and he's very serious about this. He does not want it to happen. He thinks the repercussions could be catastrophic. Meanwhile, people like Tank assume that they're going to awaken the test subjects, and that by awakening them, they might gather a lot of new intel that they didn't previously have. So we had these conflicting ideas, but they're referring to the test subjects before they've been awakened. Our original crew, who were stuck on the Moon, exists in a timeline in which Richthofen was never killed. He then goes on to awaken the test subjects and then tries to take over the world. So they're not quite stuck on the Moon. When we're playing the Giant, what's actually happening on the Moon at the same exact time is that Dr. Groff and Dr. Schuster are there waiting by the MPD pyramid with many other Group 935 scientists. They're waiting for Richthofen's arrival. Meanwhile, supposedly Dr. Maxis and Dr. Samantha are teleported there. However, just judging by the way things are looking with the Giant story, that might not actually be the case. Samantha might be somewhere else, and Dr. Maxis may have actually been sent into a more ethereal realm. That's at least what we're thinking right now. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot more exploring in terms of Easter eggs. However, the original crew stuck on the Moon don't exactly exist in this timeline. They are the test subjects, and there's a big debate right now over whether or not to awaken them. That's going to wrap things up for this episode of the Zombie Storyline Q&A, though. If you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a like, possibly subscribe for more. I'm going to be uploading multiple every week, and if you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Have a fantastic day, and bye.